Get ready to immerse yourself in a world of vision, inspiration, belonging, and empowerment. Brought to you by Naturals To Go, the VIBEcast is your gateway to realizing your entrepreneurial dreams. In each episode, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit, offering you the tools and insights you need to turn your dreams into reality. We're all about fostering a powerful vision, sparking inspiration, nurturing a sense of belonging, and providing the empowerment you need to thrive. So sit back, relax, and get ready to dive into the vibe. It's time to take your entrepreneurial journey to the next level. Thank you for joining us, and let's start living the vibe.
Hey folks, welcome to VIBEcast. This is Linda Ballesteros and I am your host today, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. I always share with you a little bit of information, a tidbit that I've found in different articles, and this one was actually on Yahoo Finance. It says, a vending machine is a device that gives out items in exchange for coins and tokens. That's what most people think vending is. It went on to say, a smart vending machine is an advanced version that not only dispenses, but it engages the customers using touchscreen controls, video, audio, and cashless payment. The increasing use of this technology is likely to drive the growth of smart vending market. And that's what we're going to be talking about today with Paul Ein. Paul is absolutely an icon in the vending business. He has a wealth of experience in product development and engineering, primarily in vending and in manufacturing industries. But today, Paul is the VP of Product Strategy and Operations at Naturals To Go. Paul, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us.
Thanks, Lynn. It is my pleasure. By the way, what you just said is a good lead-in because we call that customer experience, and that user interface area is so key to drawing that end customer in and using that vending machine. In fact, we used to do studies where we would take a touch screen on a user interface and a keypad, side-by-side machines, same product, same pricing, and 3-to-1, just that engagement with that touch screen would outsell the other machine. Everything else exactly the same. Everything. It was just
that is amazing.
Screen.
Yeah.
And people I think today with smartphones and everything, people are just into it,
Yeah, definitely. There's the smart houses as well, Paul. Everybody wants everything smart. So we've got smart vending machines here. And it sounds like they're certainly going to be leading the industry when it comes to the vending market. Paul, I know that, I mentioned that you have a wealth of experience in this. Talk to us a little bit about where that began and how did you become interested in this?
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Yeah, that's actually a great story. I started out my career, I was actually pre-med, and I was waiting to get into med school. I got put on the alternate list, okay, going way back. And all of a sudden, a professor at Marquette University said, well, are you interested in biomedical engineering? And so I started, just dabbling with him, and I was actually implanting telemetry devices. Okay, now this is back in the 80s, right? Into Siberian tigers at the Milwaukee County Zoo. And I got fascinated with that whole industry. And so I went back and finished another degree in biomedical engineering. And I went to work for 3M doing medical implants. And really, the 3M career was so fascinating, not just because of the corporate lessons that I got out of 3M, but they taught me product development. And that's really been the key, product development and operational excellence in not only developing new products, but manufacturing them and launching them. I really learned so much at 3M, and I owe them so much that when 3M then, jumping ahead, spun off 1/3 of the company. Now imagine this, 120,000 employees, $12 billion in sales, and one day they spin off $3 to $4 billion in sales and say, okay, this is a new company. And when that happened, okay, I had the option because of my position to stay with 3M or go with the new company. And so I started interviewing. I just started interviewing. I feel, well, I'm in my 30s now, and if I'm ever going to do anything, let's go out in the world and see what the world has to offer. And I'll never forget, Linda. I was in Eugene, Oregon, and I was interviewing with a company called Spectraphysics, all the barcode scanners on cash registers, right? And for the VP of engineering R&D for Spectraphysics. And my wife called me, and she said, Paul, a gentleman called you a motor supplier from Barber-Coleman, little DC motor supplier, and said, hey, there's a vending machine manufacturer in St. Paul, Minnesota called Automatic Products. And he represents not only three motors for 3M, but motors for Automatic Products. And he heard about me, and he wanted to know if he could introduce me to Automatic Products because they're looking for a new VP of engineering and operations. And I said, vending machines, really? I said, I do implants. I was doing eye implants, hip implants, knee implants. Long story short, I came home from my interview with Spectraphysics, and they said, we just want you to meet these people. And a funny story there, the motor supplier said, by the way, I told him I've known you for years, Paul. And I had never met the guy, right? He heard about me. So he said, we're going to go to breakfast, but act like you know me in front of the owners of this company, privately held company, right? And if you ever saw that movie Trading Places, Mortimer and his brother, that's exactly Ellen Suter and Len McElhaney as they walked into Perkins restaurant in Maplewood, Minnesota. They walk in and sat down. And no kidding, we talked, Linda, for about 15, 20 minutes, never even seen my resume. And they said, when can you start? And, that's what actually propelled me into the vending industry. And having done that, I never thought it would be 2024, right? And it would be, 30 plus years later, and I'd still be in the industry today.
Wow. Wow.
But
Isn't it amazing how one connection can change the whole projection trajectory of your career. So, absolutely. So when you started with vending, what was it that really intrigued you about maybe where it could go or where you could possibly take it with your creativity?
Yeah. What really enticed me when I looked at a vending machine? It was like, now imagine I came from the world of 3M, right? 60,000 different products. And we were always pushing ourselves for innovative, new types of products, right? And when I saw that vending machine, I go, oh, this is going to be fun. I mean, it looked like something from the 60s still, right? Right. And I thought, wow, my mind started going, right? Mechanical, software, what could we all do? Styling, what could we all do to this machine? And Linda, my first couple of years, NAMA, which is basically the governing body, right, for National Automatic Merchandising Association for the vending industry, we had an annual meeting that year. I think they used to have two meetings, but this was the big one in the fall, and it was in St. Louis. And I'll never forget, I was brand new, and they said, Paul, we would like you to speak. Now, I had only been in the industry a short time, right? And Automatic Products was sponsoring a huge distributor banquet. And I don't know if you've ever been to St. Louis under the arch, but there's a huge convention room underneath their banquet room. And they said, Paul, we'd like you to speak and represent Automatic Products, of course, and talk about the future of vending, right? And, so now I'm all excited, right? It's like, wow, here's this guy. And Linda, I'll never forget, I got up there, being in the industry a short time, right? And I basically put out my hands and I said, to the industry, you're in good hands. I'll never forget doing this. And it was like, I heard my management team and my team of engineers behind me say, oh, where's he going with this? And I told them, I started talking about the product roadmap and where we're going to go with improved mechanical designs on these machines. And I started talking about software and back end systems that could talk to each other. We weren't talking AI at the time. Okay, we weren't that far advanced, but all of these things, and it was so exciting. So to answer your question, it was like I just saw such a huge opportunity to take vending as it was in the early 90s, which was still what it was in the earlys and 60s and 80s, and just take it to another level.
Mm-hmm.
It was so exciting for me. And I was fortunate, Linda, in my career. Honestly, not only had I worked with a lot of good people that coached and mentored me, but I was fortunate when I left 3M, 6 engineers came with me.
Wow.
Imagine I was bringing a team to join an already existing talented mechanical, electrical dispensing design team, right? And now I'm bringing 6 very talented 3M engineers, right, with me, and that cohesiveness of that group just propelled us to doing some great things in the vending industry. I was really fortunate, and just to kind of jump ahead, many of those engineers stayed with me at 3 different companies. We stayed
Wow.
together. And in the last company, Witteren, okay, that I finished my last 10 years with, leading up to April of 2022, I actually was brought back by the engineers that worked for me to come work with them this time. Instead of me bringing them to the company, they brought me back. And well, I was fortunate to have had that experience.
Paul, what you're describing is great relationships, and we'll certainly talk about that in a bit. But, I'm thinking about the creativity that you were talking about, your vision. And I remember seeing somewhere that there were some patents that had your name on it. So how did that happen, Paul?
Uh, um, Starting at 3M, okay, starting at 3M, I often thought as an engineer, had I not gone into engineering, I would have loved patent law. I really got into it. In those days, when you develop a patent, not like today, Linda, where you go online and do patent searches to find out if your idea, is the only one out there and there's no prior art. In those days, we used to fly out to Washington, D.C., to the patent library, and you had 2 pieces of wood on a V, and you grab a stack of patents related to your idea, and you would page through one at a time.
Wow.
If you can imagine that, right? To see if there was any prior art. Okay. Now, what I was doing, my first patent, I was doing eye implants. And the eye implants, it was a intraocular lens to replace a human lens when a person had cataract surgery. Okay. And my idea was mine and another gentleman's idea, was to cut diffractive light cuttings into that lens so that you could diffract the light rays and get both distance and near. Because what was happening up to that point, when you replace the human lens with an artificial lens, you could only give the patient near or distant vision.
Mm.
And that patent was so that you could allow a patient to have both distance and near vision. So that's what really got me excited when, oh, I got my first patent. My next patents came in the area of dispensing. Okay. And it's an interesting story because when I was with automatic products, the industry was moving from traditional vending machines to a lot of glass front and beverage machines. We call them new age beverage machines. And that was, we were moving away from the traditional Coke and Pepsi can, okay, and moving to what we call new age beverage bottling, the bigger plastic bottles and things like that. But we also were finding, and going back to the customer experience user interface study we talked about earlier, is that vending machines that had touch screens, great user interfaces, but glass front sold more product than the closed front machines. It was proven time and time again. And we could talk about that for hours, Linda. But what the industry was looking for, Coke and Pepsi primarily, was pushing for, was a glass front machine that could basically dispense all different, everything, anything from a can to a 24 ounce plastic bottle and everything in between. Okay. So my next patent, along with another gentleman, one of my lead engineers, was we came up with an idea for a XY robotic arm that basically you could display all of your products, but not drop them, not gravity drop them, right? We would go up and get it with a little carriage, and then we would dispense it at what we call an ergonomic friendly height. So a person didn't have to bend down, to the traditional delivery bins. And so we acquired a patent for that, and we developed a machine. Now, this is the interesting story part of it. The patent's fascinating, but what's even more fascinating is the machine that we actually designed didn't work. It did not work. It was too it was too unreliable. Okay. And what happened there is the machine, it was called RoboQuencher. Okay. It was called RoboQuencher. Think of a robot dispensing your bottles and cans. The product failed, but the patent lives to this day. Okay. So when you're in the world of R&D, sometimes it's not the product so much that is the successful part. It's what we call the intellectual property or the patent of it.
Mm.
And that patent, I'll never forget when Crane Merchandising Systems acquired Automatic Products. I went on and led the engineering operations group for Crane. And I'll never forget, Crane had their own glass front machine that was failing. And I'll never forget, we were in Orlando at another NAMA, and with a team, and Coke and Pepsi had thrown up their hands and said, "We're not going to buy the BevMax any longer unless it's more reliable." And I turned to the team and I said, "You realize now you own the Automatic Products patent that I authored, and we can redesign this machine." And that's what's today the BevMax that you see in airports and hospitals and all over today. So the IP is very, very important. Another patent that we have, and this is something that's interesting too, is on digital pricing in a machine. One of the biggest, we always look for, Linda, the need. You always have to understand the need, I tell engineers. You can design the greatest product, but if there's not a need out there, it's worthless, right? Operators have to see value. So one of the things that I stress with engineering groups is to understand that need and then design and develop a product that addresses that need and that ultimately brings value to the operator, right? And so digital pricing was something that came about because operators said, you know what? At the time, we had these little roller price tabs on all the trays, and they said for us to go around when you have 1,000 machines out there, and to go around and change that pricing on a Snickers bar, right? It's too labor intensive. We often just leave the pricing the way it is. But if we could push down the digital pricing and have the tray automatically update itself, it was a win for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the third patent there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, those kinds of ideas, everyone has their own little special story,
Yeah, definitely. And you've mentioned several times, Paul, about surrounding yourself with really influential people that made an impact on not just your career, but your life as well. Tell me a little bit about some of those folks.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure. And to be honest, almost all of them I still communicate with, and some of them are retired a long time, and they still are hitting me on LinkedIn and on holidays. But it all started out with in the vending industry. I'm going to stay there because I've got some in the medical too. But in the vending industry, Alan Suter. Alan Suter was the CEO of Automatic Products. He was Mortimer, who came and interviewed me at the Perkins restaurant, right? And Alan Suter he came from Canada, and he was a pioneer in the vending industry. I can remember my first NAMA. If you can imagine the first NAMA show, right? You've got, I'm a young engineer, and he said, "Paul, you're going to walk the floor with me." And I'll never forget that floor, McCormick Center in Chicago, should have taken us, an hour max to walk. We didn't get through it in one day because he knew so many people, so many that he wanted me to meet, so many people that he knew in my career I would be touching. Okay. And Alan then, of course, I worked for him for 10 years until he retired. But he introduced me to so many people. Andre Lebay, who was one of the biggest distributors in Canada. And not just knowing Andre, but Andre's an interesting story because late at night, I believe if you're passionate about your craft, you time doesn't mean anything. And I'll tell you, Linda, there used to be evenings, late evenings, where I'd walk in Alan's office after everybody was gone, and I would sit down with Alan Suter. He was that type of guy, and he meant so much to me. And I would just pour my heart out of a challenge that we had. And many times Alan would say to me, Paul, let's call Andre. Because Andre was older than Alan and he's been in industry his whole life. This industry keeps you in it. It just doesn't let you go. People stay in it forever. And I learned so much from these two guys saying, hey, this is what Paul and his teams are dealing with. What do you think? It was that kind of dialogue. The introduction by Alan to leaders at Canteen, AVI, Aramark. These were the big players and still today in the vending industry. And then, Linda, when they said, okay, Paul, we need a new line of coffee machines, okay? And coffee's an art. Vending snack and food and beverages, exciting, but coffee's an art. And I thought, wow, it's just a liquid, right? It's just a liquid and we kind of pour it in a cup and how hard can this be? And I'll never forget, they sent me over to Holland and a company at the time called Automatic Holland, the biggest vending operation in Europe. And a gentleman there by the name of Hank Salai, who, by the way, Hank was just pinging me yesterday on LinkedIn. He's retired now. But I'll never forget, we designed a coffee machine for Europe. And I had a team of engineers at the time in Warminster, Pennsylvania, as well as in St. Paul, Minnesota. And the team in Warminster, Pennsylvania was all coffee. Okay. And I had never even been involved in a huge coffee development program until this European machine that we were designing for Automatic Holland. And the machine, the team came over from Holland to view it, one of the prototypes, and said, it's garbage. It's garbage. And I thought, wow, we missed the mark. I'll never forget this. And I quickly got on the phone with Automatic Holland, Hank Salai, who was the leader of that organization. And I said, Hank, you know what I want to do? I want to come over and I want you to teach me coffee design. And here I was the manufacturer of his machine. I said, I want you to teach me. And I went over there and that started our relationship. And he taught me coffee design from an operator perspective. And I think that's where a lot of engineers fail because they don't put themselves in the user's position, right? And that's what Hank helped me to understand. So that was Hank Sly, and to this day, fantastic. There's another story about me and Hank at the 100th Hartley anniversary, but I'll talk about that another time. The young coffee tech, just the relationships that I had moving around from having worked at all three of the major manufacturers of vending equipment here in the U.S. Bill Hutchinson, one of the largest distributors of Vending Center in Birmingham, Alabama. Bill had such an influence on me from a distributor perspective. Art Witteren from the Witteren Group. I used to sit with these people, just not just having phone conversations with them or seeing them at events, but one-on-one in their offices, and just like I say, getting to know them, and them influencing me on really the direction that I should go to have a successful career in this industry. I'll tell you, without those people, I wouldn't be able to do what I do today at Naturals to Go.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Paul. And you've talked a lot about relationships, and I'm like you. I think relationships is the backbone to every single business. It's the backbone to our community. It's the backbone to our family. And so when we look at that, Paul, you've been in corporate and you've built these relationships. How do you take that and apply it in your position with Naturals to Go?
Yeah, what it does is it opens up doors for Naturals to Go. And what I mean by that is when I joined Naturals to Go, great company. The leader, Heath Falzerano, is really the main reason why I'm here. The guy, you just want to work for him. You want to do things for him. He has this free enterprising culture that draws people like myself in, that says, you know what? I can contribute in a big way to what Heath has created here. And I've told people in the past, when you sit back and look at the at the team that Heath has built, it's very it's you know it's a very interesting group. Everybody's so specialized, so talented, and they bring so many ideas. We don't all agree all the time, but in the end, we're marching together in the right direction, Linda. I mean, it is so cool. And so for me to come bring in, I'll never forget my first training session I came to. I was about to call it retirement from the Wittering Group, right? Ultimately moved my family back to Wisconsin from Des Moines, Iowa. And I said, let me come out it was February of 2022. I set to leave the end of March, April 1st of 2022. And I said, let me come out and experience what a training on the USI equipment is at a Naturals to Go operator event, because one of the teams that reported to me on the operations side at Wittering was the customer support group, the technical support teams. And I said, then I can go back and make sure that Naturals to Go is fully supported once I leave April 1st. So in February, I came out, and I'll tell you what, I found the Naturals to Go team so different than anybody in the industry. And my teams had manufactured equipment for all of Naturals to Go's competitors. But Naturals to Go, to me, it was like it was like water hitting you in the face and saying, these guys are so different. They care about the operator. And I'm not just saying that because I saw it in their eyes and the way that they talk to the operator. And when I understood the structure of the group and how they were going to support the operator as the operator scaled their business, nobody else does that. Nowhere near the level of Naturals to Go. So I thought, wow, knowing all that, knowing that Naturals to Go is that different, right? How could I contribute? And to this day, I still say he set me up. He knew I would come to this conclusion, right? And say, how could I be part of this team, right? That's how talented he is as a recruiter. It's not you coming to him. It's him making you want to come, right? Right. And somehow find a way to become part of this team. And what I did, to Heath's credit, I said, you know what, Heath? I said, we could open up our doors here. When you talk about scaling an operator's business, right? How best to do that then, not only with great advice, great business sense, right? But also additional offerings that would allow them to get into locations they normally wouldn't be able to get in there, much less as the sole operator. I could bring that. And not only that, I could bring the experience of which when we go to talk to manufacturers, right? It wouldn't be like Heath's team did in the past, where they would come in and say, hey, we'd like to buy your machine. We're going to walk in. We're going to have a Naturals to Go design specification that we want the manufacturer to build for us. Build a best-in-class machine for the Naturals to Go operator. Not just buy what they already have. Maybe buy what they already have with modifications, but buy a best-in-class machine so that our operators can be the most successful operators in the industry. I felt that's what, Linda, I could bring to Naturals to Go.
Yeah, I love that so much, Paul. And we're coming down to the end of the interview, but you started in vending when it was probably the pull style, and I always say, when I was in banking and the vending machine in our employee lounge, it had lots of yellow stickies on it that said, you owe Mary $1.50, you owe Bill $1.75. Well, it's certainly come a long way. So you've shared a little bit with us about what that did look like, the history of that. And you shared with us where we are now. Paul, where are we going in vending?
Great question. And let me preface this, Linda. When I got to Crane, when Crane acquired AP in 2006, right? Crane, you know what our first experience was? And it kind of it supports your question. They took a 1960s machine, right? And then they took a 2000 machine and put them side by side. Okay. And Linda, from 1960 to 2000, uh, take a guess at how many dollars in additional parts it would take to modify that 1960s machine to a 2000 machine. Okay. It was like $60 in parts.
Wow.
That's all that had changed.
Wow.
So really the challenge to us back in 2006 was, guys, we want to change the industry. So to answer your question, and we did with a product called the Merchant End. But to your point, where vending is going today, okay? The industry, and I call it the dispensing industry so much because it's wide open. It's not just candy bars, food products, beverages, but I also include in there the non-traditional items, everything from industrial components, nuts and bolts, to personal protection care like face masks and gloves, medical supplies. It's wide open. Retail market, cosmetics, things like this that retail stores have trouble controlling. Okay, today there's a lot of shrink. They would like to dispense it in some controlled fashion like that. But also where it's going is with the user interface area. That started our conversation today. More inviting user interfaces, touchscreens that have advertising on them, giving the user, the end user, not only a better experience, but also the operator another revenue stream where they could advertise on that screen. And the other big area that dispensing vending machines are going to is the back end. Okay, and it's where the machines are talking to each other now. Okay, where is basically you have a headquarters, and instead of an operator going out and just checking their machines, the machines are actually checking in and saying, I need this, I need this, I need this. And Linda, then you know what the next level is? And I love this, and it's not just a buzzword, is AI and the artificial intelligence. We've already here at Naturals to Go, working with operators, are talking about integrating the artificial intelligence into our control boards. Okay, that's basically your logic board that says, okay, you want to vend a candy bar and it costs this much in simple terms, right? That logic, that control board is also starting to monitor the payment systems, the bill validator, the cashless card reader, and reporting in saying, you know what, on a preventive maintenance schedule, you're due to clean this component or replace this component at a certain interval. We want to tell the operator ahead of time when these components are about to fail, or even when their air filter is clogged and their machine isn't working properly. That's what's going to make our operators, going back to what we said earlier, more efficient and bring value to them. And what I like about it is it's all going to be in the Naturals to Go equipment. That'll set us apart from everybody else in the industry. Right?
I love
we
it.
can make manufacturers, and I was just on the phone with manufacturers this morning, and they probably love it when I do this, but I tell them we can make you better. Imagine that, a customer telling you, we're going to make you better, right? We're not only going to be the best customer you ever had, this huge base of operators, right? But we have the knowledge. We have the knowledge to improve what you already have and have been successful with.
I'm loving it, Paul. I tell you what, if someone is listening right now, Paul, and if they aren't already convinced that they want to partner with Naturals to Go and with you, what would you like to leave them with that will make them want to investigate this opportunity of being an owner operator with Naturals to Go a little bit further?
Right. Honestly, I can tell you this with sincerity, right? Joining the Naturals to Go family as an operator, you will be guaranteed the best-in-class equipment that the industry has to offer. And we will continue to not only provide you upgrades to that equipment, okay, but additional offerings of the same level of quality and technology. And we will continue to support you as your business grows. I tell people this because of the people, Linda, that we've brought to this team. There's no other group like us out there, you know. And some people say that just because they think they're good, but I know this industry. I know the other players, and they know who Naturals to Go is now, and everybody wants to work with us. So as an operator, you're the one that's going to benefit from all this. Working with a class organization, an organization that's just going to get better.
I love it. I love it, Paul. Paul, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. It's always an honor to be in your space and to hear your knowledge and your expertise. I'm just always humbled by it. So I appreciate it. And I'm so excited that to hear about some of the fun things that are going on with Naturals to Go. So folks, you know that I always leave you with a quote. This one is by Dennis Waitley. Never become so much of an expert that you stop gaining expertise. View life as a continuous learning experience. It's what we've been talking about today. You know, in the South, we say, don't sit back on your laurels. I have to be honest with you, I'm not sure what laurels are, but if you've listened to this interview, you know that Paul Ein and Naturals to Go is always going to be pushing the envelope, and we'll never sit back on our laurels. Thanks so much for joining me today on VIBEcast. If I don't see you until the next show, be sure to go out and live the vibe.
That's a wrap for this episode of the VIBEcast. We hope you've been inspired and empowered on your entrepreneurial journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all your favorite platforms to stay connected with the Vibe community. Until next time, keep nurturing that strong vision, fueling your inspiration, and embracing a sense of belonging and empowerment. Your dreams are within reach, so keep living the vibe.